Welcome back, everybody. We are diving deep today into the fascinating world of money. Not the boring stuff, like spreadsheets. No, the human side of it.
The psychology of money.
Yes, exactly. We're going to be looking at the psychology of money, the book by Morgan Housel, Trina Extract, some really key takeaways that can hopefully shift your perspective on wealth, success, and happiness.
What I think is so interesting about Morgan Housel's approach to this topic is that he kind of goes beyond the typical financial advice that you might see. Just the numbers.
Yeah.
He really delves into the psychology behind our money choices.
So it's more than just being good with numbers. There's like a whole other layer to this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Our emotions, past experiences, even our biases all play a role in shaping our financial decisions.
So you're saying it's not just about making the right calculations?
Nope, not just about that. Housel talks about how our upbringing and our early experiences with money shape our, beliefs about money. And then ultimately our financial decisions. And he calls this our financial DNA.
Financial DNA.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, it's basically like a financial fingerprint that you develop early on.
So that makes sense. Like people who grew up during the Great Depression, for example, would probably view money differently.
Absolutely.
Than someone who, grew up in a time of, like, economic prosperity.
Yeah, exactly. Or, how about this, people who witnessed, like, the booming stock market of the 1970s versus those who saw the stagnation of the 1950s.
Right.
Their experiences during those really kind of formative years shaped their risk tolerance, their investment choices, everything.
So even if some of those beliefs, aren't necessarily correct in the world today, they still have a strong influence over how we handle money.
Huge influence, yeah. And that's why it's so important to understand this financial DNA, right? It helps us kind of recognize the sometimes subconscious forces that are driving our money choices.
I see, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So this is really challenging, this idea that being good with money is just about having the perfect investment strategy or, the right calculations.
Right, it's more about understanding yourself.
Exactly. Understanding yourself,
Yeah.
And your history with money.
Totally.
Okay, well, that leads us to another really interesting idea from the book, which is the power of time and compounding.
Yeah.
Now, I know we always hear about compound interest being like the eighth wonder of the world or something like that, but Housel actually uses a very specific case study to illustrate this, and it's Warren Buffett.
Oh, yeah, what a great example. Because Warren Buffett, he really embodies this idea.
Yeah.
The vast majority of his wealth was accumulated after he turned 60.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild?
So it wasn't just like, quick gains and getting rich quick schemes. It was more like slow and steady.
The long game, the long game.
Yeah.
And Housel emphasizes this, It's not just about being a brilliant investor like Buffett. Of course, it helps. It's more about starting early and letting that time and that compounding work its magic.
Right.
And the earlier you start, the more time those investments have to grow exponentially.
Now, I actually remember Housel making a really interesting comparison between Warren Buffett and Jim Simons, who's a hedge fund manager known for his incredibly high returns.
But his overall wealth is significantly less than Warren Buffett.
Right, because he started later in life.
Exactly. And Housel actually did the calculations. And he said that if Simons had started investing at the same age as Buffett, his net worth would be a truly astronomical number.
I think it was like $63 quadrillion or something like that.
Something like that. It's insane. It's a mind-boggling number.
Yeah.
Which really highlights, just how important that early start and that compounding
power of time
is.
Yeah. So I guess the key takeaway here is that time is your biggest asset when it comes to building wealth.
Absolutely.
And you don't want to wait.
Start as early as you can.
You don't want to wait. Exactly. Even if it's small amounts.
Yeah.
Just start.
Yeah.
That's the important thing.
That's the ticket.
Now, I know we've talked a lot about, being optimistic when it comes to investing.
Yeah.
But Housel actually talks about the allure
Oh, yeah.
of pessimism when it comes to money.
Yeah.
Why is it that money seems to attract pessimism?
Yeah.
Even though history shows that, in general, things tend to get better over time.
Right.
So why are we so negative?
Well, it's a paradox, but I think that Housel really nails it when he talks about how this negativity bias really stems from our evolutionary wiring, you know? Our brains are naturally attuned to threats and losses because that helped us survive.
So it's like that primal instinct, the fight or flight response,
Yeah, exactly.
applied to our money. So it's like when the stock market dips, we just freak out.
We panic. We
And
panic.
even though it's probably going to go back up.
Probably, yeah. Historically speaking.
Right, right. And this makes me wonder if that negativity bias can actually prevent us from seeing the bigger picture.
Absolutely.
You know, that long-term upward trend.
Yeah, it's like tunnel vision.
Tunnel vision, yeah.
Instead of seeing the whole landscape.
So while it's important to be aware of the risks,
Right.
we also need to balance that with some optimism.
Exactly.
For the future.
A long-term perspective.
Long-term, yes. You know, I'm also curious to hear what Housel has to say about the role of luck
Oh, interesting.
in financial success.
Sure.
Because, yeah, it just seems like some people, they have all right opportunities fall into their lap, and others, they struggle despite their best efforts. So is it just luck?
Well, Housel addresses this head-on, and he tells a really compelling story about Bill Gates and his early access to a computer at his high school. This was back in 1968. It was Lakeside School. You know, out of the millions of high school students in the world, only 300 went to Lakeside. And guess what? They had this visionary professor who decided to lease a computer, a Teletype Model 30.
Wow. So Bill Gates was just in the right place at the right time.
Extremely lucky, yeah. And, you know, Bill Gates himself has said, like, if it hadn't been for Lakeside, there may not have been a Microsoft.
Wow. So that kind of makes you feel like, well, it's all just about luck then, right? Like, what can we do?
Here's where Housel brings in the concept of risk.
Okay.
As the close sibling, he calls it, of luck. So while Gates was benefiting from this crazy opportunity, one of his equally brilliant classmates tragically lost his life in a mountaineering accident.
Oh, wow.
So you see, both luck and risk are these forces largely beyond our control.
Yeah.
It's not always just about hard work.
Not always just about merit.
Right. Like,
There are these other factors.
unpredictable factors.
Unpredictable, right. And it's kind of like you're sailing a ship, right? And you can control the rudder and the sails. But the wind and the waves,
For sure.
luck and risk,
Okay, you got it.
they can really alter your course.
Absolutely. They can blow you off course.
Exactly. So I guess that leads us to this question.
Mm.
If true wealth
Mm.
isn't just about, you know, hard work
Right.
or even luck, what is it really about?
That is the question.
That is the question. I have a feeling Housel dives into this.
He does.
Deeper meaning of wealth
Yes.
beyond just the numbers in our bank account.
You got it. And you know what? He actually makes a really important distinction
Okay.
between being rich and being wealthy.
Okay, so what's the difference? What is the difference?
So being rich, he says, that's about what you see,
Hmm.
right? It's the fancy cars, the big houses, the material possessions. It's all about your income and what you can show off.
Right. Okay.
Wealth, on the other hand, is about what you don't see. It's about the assets you haven't yet spent. It's about financial security, freedom,
I see.
actionality.
Okay. So someone could be driving around in a Lamborghini
Yeah,
and actually be drowning in debt,
totally, yeah.
while someone living a seemingly modest lifestyle could have this, like, you know, large investment portfolio just quietly growing in the background.
You got it.
So true wealth whispers, as they say.
It does.
Yeah. Okay, so true wealth is more than just those
Yeah.
material possessions. It's more about
Security,
security,
freedom,
freedom.
and the ability to make choices without being limited by, you know,
Finances.
having options.
Options, exactly.
And that actually brings us to the concept of freedom and how it relates to, you know, true wealth. Housel says that the real reward of wealth is the ability to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want.
That's it.
And that's a powerful concept.
Yeah, it's freedom.
Freedom, exactly. It's not about the stuff.
Right.
It's about what that stuff allows you to do and how you spend your time.
How you spend your time.
Yeah.
Having the flexibility to pursue your passions, to spend time with loved ones, create a life that's, you know, both financially secure and
Fulfilling.
fulfilling. Yeah. But how do we avoid falling into that trap
What trap?
of like always wanting more, you know, never feeling like we have enough?
Oh, right. It's so easy to fall into that trap.
Right. And that's where Housel introduces this concept called the hedonic treadmill.
The hedonic treadmill, yeah. It's this tendency that we all have to constantly raise the bar for what we consider enough, right?
So we get a raise, we buy a bigger house, we get a promotion, and
we want more. We get used to that, and then
we want more, we want the next thing, and then it's like we're never really
satisfied.
satisfied. Yeah.
Never satisfied.
So it's this never-ending pursuit
It is.
of more, 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 and it never really brings, lasting satisfaction.
And that's the danger, right? It can be really destructive.
I mean, it makes me think about, those stories you hear about. Like Bernie Madoff, for example, who orchestrated that massive Ponzi scheme, even though he was already incredibly wealthy.
He had everything, but it wasn't enough.
But it wasn't enough. It's crazy. So I guess the question is, how do we break free from this hedonic treadmill? How do we find that sense of, contentment?
Contentment, that's the magic word.
In a world that's constantly telling us, you need more, more, more.
Right. Well, Housel suggests, and I think it's a really good starting point to reflect on, what really brings you joy and meaning.
Meaning, yeah. So it's not about what society tells us we should want. It's about what actually
What matters to you.
What matters to you. Okay, so
Defining your own success.
defining your own success, exactly. And then making sure that, your financial goals are actually aligned with those values.
With what's important to you, not what's important to, everybody else or what you think you should be doing. Yeah.
Right, exactly, yeah. Okay, well, speaking of aligning financial goals.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear what House will have to say about investing in the stock market.
Oh, interesting. Because, for a lot of people, that can be
Very intimidating.
intimidating. Yeah, scary.
Yeah, especially if you don't have a financial background, it can feel very overwhelming.
It's complex. There's a lot going on.
Right. Well, House uses a very interesting analogy to explain this.
Okay.
He compares investing in the stock market
Oh, okay.
to climbing a mountain.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So tell me more. Tell me more
Okay, well,
about this mountain metaphor.
he's saying, okay, when you're climbing a mountain, it's going to be challenging.
Right.
There's going to be ups and downs.
Yeah.
There might be storms. But you also know that the view from the top
Yes.
is worth it.
So the potential rewards
Make it worth the effort.
make it worth the effort.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's about accepting that there will be volatility
Absolutely.
and uncertainty
Mhm.
as part of that journey.
Part of the journey. Yeah.
Okay. So you can't just expect to get to the summit
Yeah.
without
putting in the work.
those obstacles along the way.
Without those obstacles. Yep.
Okay. But the problem, as Housel points out, is that a lot of people, they try to steal from the market.
What do you mean?
They want the rewards
Right.
without paying the price.
Yeah.
So what does that look like
Yeah.
in practice? They're trying to time the market perfectly, buying low and selling high,
Or
consistently
adding all the risks.
avoiding the risk. And it's like that get rich quick
mentality.
yeah.
Trying to beat the system.
Beat the system, yeah, without actually putting in the work.
Without doing the work.
Without doing the work, exactly, yeah.
Or accepting that there will be downsides.
Downsides, yeah. And Housel actually illustrates this with another analogy.
Okay, hit me.
Buying a car.
Buying a car. Okay.
Okay, so
How's that work?
you have three options.
Huh.
You can buy a new car, buy a used car,
Okay.
or you could steal a car.
All right, I'm following.
Now, how do those car options relate to investing?
Okay.
Buying a new car
What?
represents aiming for high returns
Mm-hmm.
in the stock market. You're paying a premium price up front, but the potential rewards
Odds are higher.
are higher. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Buying a used car represents a more conservative approach, safer,
Lower returns, but
lower returns, but
lower risk.
less risk. Okay.
Yeah.
And then stealing a car
Oh, boy.
is trying to game the system,
Yeah, that's not a good idea.
trying to get something for
Right.
nothing, which,
Right.
of course, in the real world, that comes with huge risks
Yeah.
and consequences.
Absolutely.
Huge. Yeah. But for some reason, when it comes to the stock market,
Right.
people think they can get away with it. They think they can outsmart everybody else.
They can beat the system.
They can beat the system
Yeah.
and avoid, all the risks.
Yeah.
And come out on top effortlessly. It's not realistic.
Yeah, that works.
No, not how it works. No.
Yeah.
So I guess the takeaway here is that
Yeah.
investing.
Yeah.
It comes with a price. You have to pay to play. It's not just about the financial costs, but also emotional cost.
The emotional roller coaster, for sure.
Roller coaster, right? The ups and downs.
Yeah, you have to accept those as part of the journey.
So it's about viewing those costs,
Yeah.
as Housel says, as the price of admission
Mm-hmm.
into a system that over the long term,
Well, in the long term, right?
has the potential to generate significant wealth.
That's the key.
It's about playing the long game.
It is.
And speaking of potential payoffs, I want to talk about one of my favorite concepts from the book, which is
What's that?
tail events.
Tail events. Tell me more.
So tail events are these. They're rare occurrences
Okay.
that have a disproportionate impact on the overall outcome. So Housel uses the example of Heinz Bergeron,
Okay.
who was an art dealer. And he made a fortune by basically buying a ton of art and just waiting
Waiting for what?
for a few pieces to like skyrocket in value.
Okay, so it's about betting on those few big winners.
The big winners, yeah. Even if most of your bets
Don't pan out.
don't work out, yeah.
Okay.
It's like in venture capital.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Most startups fail.
A lot of them do.
But if you have a few big winners,
it can make up for all those losses.
make up for all those losses, yeah. I mean, the perfect example of this is
Let me guess. Amazon.
Amazon.
Nailed it.
Right. Their success is largely driven by like, what, two
tail events.
tail events,
Retail event.
Amazon Prime,
Amazon Prime.
and Amazon Web Services.
Amazon Web Services.
Out of all the things they tried, those are the two.
Yeah, yes.
That created the most value.
And Jeff Bezos has even talked about this, hasn't he? About being comfortable with, like,
A lot of failures.
a lot of failures.
As long as you get those big wins.
As long as you get those big wins.
Yeah.
So it's about being okay with, taking those risks.
And experimenting.
Experimenting.
Yeah.
Knowing that,
Not everything's going to work out. Not everything's going to work out. Yeah. So it's like, planting those seeds. You don't know which one's going to grow into a giant tree. But the more you plant,
the higher your chances.
the higher your chances. Exactly.
Of getting that big oak tree.
Of getting that big oak tree. And sometimes those seeds that do turn into those giant trees are just, they're the result of
luck.
Being in the right place at the right time. Like Bill Gates and his computer.
Exactly.
Right. So it's a reminder that you can't control everything.
Yeah.
But you can control.
What you can control.
What you can control.
Yeah.
Which is taking action.
Taking action.
Taking risks.
Calculated risks.
Calculated risks and staying.
Open to new opportunities.
Open to new opportunities.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that. As we've been talking about all these ideas from the psychology of money, well, one thing that keeps coming up for me is this idea of mindset. Like, it's not just about the
mechanics of investing, right?
Right.
But also having the right psychological approach to money. Totally. That's a huge part of it. Yeah. He really emphasizes that, money isn't just about the numbers. It's about the stories we tell ourselves about it. And the beliefs that we hold about wealth, success, what it means to be rich, all that.
Yeah. And that makes me think about how easy it is to get caught up in comparisons.
Mm-hmm.
Especially these days with like social media, where everyone's, showing off their highlight reel, their perfect lives.
Oh, I know. It's so easy to fall into that trap of comparing our own financial situation to others.
Yeah.
Even if we're doing okay.
Yeah. Even if we're doing well, it's like there's always someone who seems to be doing better.
Right.
So how do we break free from that? How do we find contentment with what we have when we're constantly bombarded with these images of more?
Right. Well, Housel actually offers I think a really powerful antidote to that.
Okay.
And it's gratitude. He talks about how shifting our focus to what we already have instead of what we lack can have a huge impact on our happiness.
So it's about appreciating the abundance that's already there.
Exactly. It doesn't mean settling or becoming complacent, right? It just means recognizing that. True wealth, it's not just about money.
Mm-hmm.
It's about those meaningful relationships, fulfilling experiences, pursuing our passions, all of that.
I see. So it's like aligning our values with our financial goals.
Exactly. Instead of letting, money dictate our lives.
Yeah. Because so often I think it's like we chase the money and then we forget, why are we doing this?
What's it all for?
What's it all for? Exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess let's talk about the practical side of this then. What advice does Housel actually give for making smart financial decisions in a world that, can feel very chaotic
Yeah.
and unpredictable.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Well, one of the most, I think, valuable insights from the book is that he emphasizes simplicity.
Simplicity.
Yeah.
I feel like so often we think we need like these complex financial strategies,
Yeah. Yeah.
all these sophisticated tools, and it can get
It's
very
overwhelming.
overwhelming. Yeah.
Right. But Housel's like, no, actually. Overcomplicating things
Mm-mm.
often leads to, bad decisions, unnecessary risk.
So we should just keep it simple.
Yeah. Focus on the things that you can control.
Okay.
Your savings rate,
Mm-hmm.
your investment costs, how your assets are allocated, simple things.
Okay. So it's like building a solid foundation
Mhm.
instead of, trying to build some like crazy castle in the air.
Exactly.
Okay. That makes sense.
Stick to the basics. Don't get swept up in all the feds.
Yeah, like the get rich quick schemes, all that stuff.
Nice.
All noise, yeah.
Yeah.
This actually feels very, I don't know, reassuring.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it feels more manageable, less intimidating,
It is.
It is. And so, along with simplicity, what other kind of like key principles does Housel talk about?
Well, he talks a lot about patience. Patience? Yeah, because one of the biggest mistakes that we make with money is we try to force things to happen on our timeline.
Right, because we're impatient. We want to see those investments grow like now.
Immediately. Yeah, we want that instant gratification.
Instant gratification, yeah. It's like it takes time
It does.
to build wealth.
Time and discipline.
Discipline, yeah. And, a willingness to just ride those waves.
Ride those waves, the ups and the downs.
Ups and downs.
Yeah.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
It's like planting a tree, right?
Yeah.
Knowing it's going to take years, maybe even decades,
Mm-hmm.
for it to reach its full potential. But you just got to
Nurture it.
nurture it, yeah.
Yeah.
And be patient.
Trust the process.
Trust the process. And this ties back to what we were talking about with, gratitude. When you're patient
Mm-hmm.
and grateful for the progress you're making, even if it's slow, you're less likely to,
Mm-hmm.
make those impulsive decisions.
Right. You don't panic.
Yeah. Or get caught up in the, like, the fear and the greed that can drive those market swings. So it sounds like simplicity, patience, gratitude. Those are kind of like the foundation.
I think so, yeah. They're essential.
Yeah. Are there any other, I don't know, key takeaways from the psychology of money that you think our listeners would find valuable?
I think one of the most important lessons is this idea that money is a tool.
A tool.
To achieve the things that truly matter to us.
Okay.
It's not an end in itself.
Right. So it's a means to an end.
Exactly.
Not the end goal itself.
Yeah. A lot of people get so caught up in just making money that they forget what it's all for.
Yeah. And they lose sight of like what actually brings them joy.
Yeah. What makes life worth living.
Exactly. Exactly. So how do we apply that? How do we make sure that we're using money as a tool and not letting it control us?
Right. Well, Housel suggests that we need to be intentional about how we use our money. Ask ourselves, like, what are my values? What do I want to achieve in life? And then make sure that our financial decisions are, aligned with those goals.
Yeah. So it's like having a plan.
A plan, yeah.
A financial plan that actually reflects like your priorities.
Yeah.
Your aspirations.
Exactly.
Not just like, what everyone else is doing.
Right. Not following the crowd blindly.
Not following the crowd. And that's what's so, I think, empowering about this. It acknowledges that there's no like one-size-fits-all approach to financial success.
Right. Everyone's different.
Everyone's different.
What works for one person might not work for another.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So the important thing is to find what works for you.
Exactly. What aligns with your values, your goals, your risk tolerance, all of that.
Your risk tolerance, yeah. And that, I think, is one of the most liberating messages from the psychology of money, right?
Okay.
It's like giving us permission to define success on our own terms.
I love that.
Yeah.
Instead of letting, societal expectations or pressures dictate, how we feel about money and our, self-worth and all of that.
Totally, yeah. It's about taking control of your own financial life and making choices that are right for you.
Yeah. And, speaking of creating a fulfilling life, I'm reminded of another theme that runs through the book, which is this idea of giving back.
Yes. Generosity.
Generosity, yes.
Housel talks about how, using our money
Yeah.
to make a positive impact can be incredibly rewarding.
So it's about recognizing that, like, money can be a force for good.
It can be, if you use it intentionally.
Use it intentionally. Okay, so what does that look like in practice? Is it about, like, you know, donating to charities?
Sure, that's one way.
Okay.
Supporting causes that you believe in.
Okay.
Maybe investing in businesses that are trying to make a difference. Whatever it is, it's about using those resources to help others. And that can bring a lot of meaning and purpose to your life. It's like shifting from that scarcity mindset to like an abundance mindset.
Exactly.
Realizing that, you have enough to share.
Yeah.
And that your generosity can actually, create a ripple effect.
Absolutely.
A positive change in the world.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. And it really gets to the heart of what it means to be truly wealthy, right? To have those resources, but also that, that generosity of spirit.
The willingness to give back.
To make a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It's not just about accumulating wealth. It's about, using that wealth.
To help others.
To help others, yeah.
Yeah.
As we wrap up our deep dive into Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money, I'm struck by how much of what we've talked about comes back to mindset.
Absolutely.
It's not just about understanding these financial concepts,
right?
But it's also about developing self-awareness when it comes to our own beliefs and behaviors around money.
Totally. Housel's really big on that. He emphasizes that,
Right.
A lot of the decisions we make about money are driven by
Our notions.
our subconscious biases, things that often stem from, our early experiences, the stories we've internalized about wealth and success.
Yeah, and it's almost like we're operating on autopilot, repeating those patterns that might not even be serving us well.
Right.
So how do we break free from those ingrained habits and make more conscious choices about money?
Yeah, it's tough. But Housel suggests we start by just paying attention to our emotional reactions, like when financial events happen. So, you're checking your portfolio, you're reading the financial news. Notice those moments where you feel fear or excitement or anxiety and just ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? What's the underlying belief or experience that's driving this reaction?
So it's like becoming like a financial detective.
A little bit, yeah.
Trying to uncover the clues to your own money minds.
Exactly. And by becoming aware of those patterns, you can start to challenge them.
Right.
You can question whether they're really serving you or holding you back.
I imagine that process of self-discovery can be pretty challenging. Are there any tools or practices that can help us along the way?
Yeah, for sure. I think mindfulness and gratitude are super valuable in this context. So mindfulness, that helps us cultivate that, present moment awareness, just observing our thoughts and emotions without judgment. And then gratitude, that encourages us to, focus on the good things, what we already have. And that can foster a sense of contentment and abundance.
So it's like we're creating this space between our emotions and our financial decisions so that we can actually make more rational choices.
Exactly. Detaching from that emotional roller coaster a little bit.
Okay, that makes sense. And this brings us back to, another key theme from the book, which is the importance of long-term thinking.
Absolutely. Can't emphasize that enough. Having that long-term perspective is crucial.
Yeah. Especially, when it comes to building wealth, navigating the ups and downs of the market. It's about delaying gratification, planting that tree, as we talked about before, and trusting that it will eventually bear fruit.
Even if it takes years.
Even if it takes a long time.
Yeah. And I think that requires a certain level of faith.
Faith?
Yeah. Faith in yourself, faith in the process, faith that the future holds, possibilities that maybe you can't even see right now.
And I think, that long-term perspective can also help us ride out those storms, right?
Absolutely.
Those market downturns.
The inevitable downturn.
That can sometimes trigger, that fear and panic.
Yeah, for sure.
But when you have that clear vision of your long-term goals,
right,
and that belief in the power of compounding, it's like those short-term fluctuations just become
less scary.
Less scary, yeah. It's like zooming out.
Exactly, seeing the bigger picture.
Seeing the bigger picture. Okay, so are there any practical tips or strategies that Housel offers for those of us who are ready to put these principles into action?
Yeah, for sure. One of the most practical pieces of advice he gives is to avoid lifestyle inflation.
Lifestyle inflation. Ooh, that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
What exactly does that mean, and why is it such a problem?
Okay, so it's basically the tendency to increase our spending as our income rises. So we get a raise, we start making more money, and almost immediately our expenses start to creep up as well.
Right. Bigger house.
Bigger house, fancier car, nicer clothes, vacations.
Yeah.
And suddenly we're back to living paycheck to paycheck.
Even though we're making more money.
Exactly.
It's that, like keeping up with the Joneses.
Totally. It's a trap.
Yeah, it's a trap. And it can be a big obstacle to actually building wealth.
Huge obstacle.
So how do we break free from this? I mean, does it mean we have to, like, deny ourselves any enjoyment, like live a life of austerity?
No, not at all. It's just about being more intentional with our spending.
Okay.
Right. Making conscious choices about what really matters to us. It's about, distinguishing between needs and wants and prioritizing those things that bring lasting joy.
Okay.
Not just those fleeting material possessions. Like,
enjoying the present,
yeah,
but also like investing in your future self.
exactly.
Life
Finding
right.
that balance. And it often requires, some discipline.
Right?
Delayed gratification.
Yeah.
Resisting those impulse purchases.
But the payoff can be huge.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, when we resist that urge to, inflate our lifestyle. With every raise, every bonus, we actually free up more resources to invest, to actually build, more secure and abundant future for ourselves and our families.
Yeah,
And that, I think, is really at the heart of what the psychology of money is all about.
I agree.
It's about creating a richer, more meaningful life, not just financially, but emotionally as well.
Well said. I think this has been a really insightful deep dive.
It has.
Yeah, I've enjoyed exploring these ideas with you.
I feel like I've learned so much.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to be looking at my own financial journey in a new light.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. And to our listeners, if you're ready to delve deeper into this fascinating world of money psychology, I highly recommend checking out Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money.
Yeah, it's a great book. It can really change the way you think about money.
And interact with it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive. Thank you for joining us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep striving to create that life of abundance and meaning.
And remember, be patient with yourself. It's a journey.
It's a journey. Celebrate the progress and never stop learning.
That's the key.
The world of money is constantly changing,
Evolving.
evolving, and there's always something new to discover.